holidays, family, friends, and of course, food. Now, while everybody is fighting over who's going to make the turkey the best, or the ham the best, or whatever your protein of choice is, you're going to show up with a side dish that's going to blow everybody out of the water. How do I know that? Because I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you how to make 3 of my favorite side dishes to take to different meals. And we're going to start off with the one that takes the most time to cook, because you need to do a lot of prep and it needs to sit for a while. And that would be cranberries. We're actually making one of my family's recipes called Cranberry Relish. It's a little bit different than most other cranberries because this one you don't actually cook. You just let it sit overnight. Now this is a little bit different than most other recipes, but you really don't need that much to make it. You of course need your cranberries. I got the big bag. You're also going to need apples. We've got about 5 different apples here cut up. A good variety helps out. And I've got 2 very large oranges that I've peeled and sectioned. Now to make this, you're also going to need a very particular piece of equipment. You're going to need one of these. This is your old-fashioned meat grinder. I've taken it apart so that I can clean it and make sure everything is good. We're going to be putting it back together and hooking it up in just a minute. You can use modern meat grinders for this kind of thing, but this particular old-fashioned hand crank guy, it does the job so much better, and it makes everything come out just that much more uniform and unique. I'm a fan of my old Seville number 17, but you can find these at most antique stores or most thrift stores too. Like I said, a modern one will work fine, but I'm a guy for the classics. Alright, we have rinsed and drained our cranberries, we've got our orange slices and our apple slices, and we've got our grinder set up to the table. This TV table is actually the only surface we had that the grinder fit on, because this is still our first year in the kitchen, but we'll get that sorted out. So it's really super simple. You basically just start off with a handful of cranberries, and you just pop those right into the grinder. This is one of those things that it's kind of gross looking to start, but once you actually get into it, it's a ton of fun, especially if there's kids or anything in the house. It's a ton of fun. Sometimes I like to just hold the grinder in place and watch the cranberries and other stuff pop inside. No. So after a few handfuls of cranberries is when you want to start to intersperse the oranges and the apples. And you can just stick the whole thing in and the grinder will do its job. It'll grind everything up and start squeezing it out. Sometimes the oranges need a little bit of help, but just like that, they'll come on through. The apples scream for help. So once everything is gone through and it's all nice and riced or relished or whatever term you want to use, you just give it a good mix. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, wow, that's actually a nice, healthy side dish. It is, till we add the sugar. This thing actually calls for an absurd amount of sugar. I'd actually cut this back as to the amount of sugar that goes in here. And the way that I like to do it's the way my mom taught me. You give it a good dusting across the top till it looks like wet snow. There we go. And then you give it a good stir. Just stir all that up. Now once everything is stirred, this will incorporate all the different fruits, all the different sugars. What we're going to do after that is just let this sit in the fridge overnight. That's going to allow the sugar to activate and let everything inside go from a level of way too tart to, wow, this is nice. This pairs really, really good with the turkey and the mashed potatoes and, well, you know, everything really for the holiday meal. What this works best as, in my opinion, is the next day when you're making your sandwich. You take this and you spread it across the bread before you put that turkey on it. Oh, it's really good. You can serve this cold if you want to. You can warm it up. But personally, I like to go for cold. But that is a cranberry relish. Now we're going to cover this. We're going to set this in the fridge and we're going to check back on it tomorrow morning. After we check on the relish, we're moving on to dish number 2. It's tomorrow, or the next day. I'm still really tired. But our cranberry relish has had overnight to sit in the fridge. So this is when you want to check it and do your last checks for if you need to add more sugar or anything to it. has had overnight. All the flavors have gotten a nice chance to marinate, mix together, marry. And there should be just enough sugar in here to cut through all that tartness. Let's see. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I think that is perfect. So as you can see, the relish is good. It has fully relished. The flavors have mixed together. It's not too tart, it's not too sweet. It is a perfect side dish to accompany the turkey, potatoes, ham, green beans, whatever. Honestly, you could just put this over top of whatever's on your plate and it'll be good. All right, on to the next thing. All right, up next we are making apple butter cinnamon croissants. These are super simple. There's a bunch of different ways to make them. I'm going to show you the one that I prefer. So we're going to start by actually buttering the baking sheet. Even though I've got one of these dark non-stick baking sheets, sometimes with these croissants, they still kind of stick. So I just prefer to hedge my bets, give it a quick greasing, and that's it. Now, the other thing you're going to want to make sure you have on hand is you want to make sure that you've got a good apple butter. This one I actually got from a place back in New Jersey. This is really, really good, but you can get whichever one you like. You're going to need a fair amount of sugar, of course your crescent rolls. You're also going to need some ground cinnamon. Now if you have it, I always recommend a cinnamon stick to help top things off. This is Saigon cinnamon. It smells really, really good, and I feel like this is going to add a really nice touch to everything that we're doing. So the first thing you're going to do is open up what I like to call the grocery store hand grenade. Because once you peeled it, you never know when this thing is going to go. They say you're actually supposed to use a spoon. I never have, but there we go. So I like to use this big baking sheet for a couple of reasons. It gives you a good work area, and it also gives you space to roll the croissants up after you've made them. So we're going to start with just tearing one croissant off at a time. Once you've got your croissant torn, you can get into your apple butter. You're going to take just a little bit of your apple butter and you're going to spread it just lightly across the inside of the croissant. Once you've got a little bit of a coating, I like to come in and in each one, a small pinch of sugar, a little bit of dusting, and an extra tiny, tiny dusting of cinnamon on the inside. That is what is known as way too much cinnamon. That is a no-no. That is bad. If that happens, just take a spoon, scrape off the majority of that cinnamon, and you'll be good. After that, just like any other croissant, you start at the fat end and you roll it that way. If a little bit of stuff oozes out, not the end of the world. You take your croissant and just set it there. And then you repeat that 7 more times. So for this last one, we're actually going to do something a little bit different. It's something I've been wanting to try with this, so I figured, why not now? I left 2 croissants, and I'm actually going to try to make a tart with them. So I've got these right here. Instead of rolling them up, I'm going to fill one and then place this one on top. And then bake it. See how that comes out. I'm probably massively overfilling it. I can hear somebody yelling at me now. So we're going to hit it with some sugar, some cinnamon, alright, and then we're just going to plop this guy on top and just gently pinch these edges together and kind of hope against hope that this thing works. Now I'm also going to just very, very gently, just score the top of this one, just in case that actually does anything. Now that we got these down, we want to add the final touches to them. So we're going to take one more bit of sugar, sprinkle just a little bit more over top of each one, because the outer sugar here is going to just about melt and turn into a delicious, almost hard coating on top. And then finally, we've got our cinnamon stick. I was lucky enough to find one of these old graters. If you can find these, I absolutely love these. I can't recommend using these enough. So we're just going to take our cinnamon and our grater and just very gently grate some fresh cinnamon over each one of these. And I can tell you, you are not going to need a lot, because just the smell of this is very quickly permeating the room, and it smells delicious. Alright, so our oven is already preheated to 375. We're going to toss these in for anywhere from 10 to 12 minutes until they look golden brown, and then we'll pop them out and give them a try. In you go. Alright, so it's been about time, and these guys look... Oh, these guys look beautiful. These guys look absolutely beautiful. Alright, make sure we turn the oven off, because I have a bad habit of not doing that. We're going to give these a second to cool, and then we're going to set them up to serve. And there you go. It's super simple, delicious apple butter, cinnamon, sugar, crescent rolls. Really achievable. Anybody can make these. The only downside to these is that they just don't make it. They don't last. Just the smell of these, they smell so good. I think I legally am obligated to try one to see how they came out. Oh yeah, that was good. We have to make another batch, so I'm just going to eat this plate.
So you can start when you're ready.
Okay. Now the tart, I was able to get that. It's got, I think, just the right amount of stuff inside. Let's give it a try here. Ooh. That is shockingly good. I think personally I do enjoy the tart a little bit more. You do get a little more filling per bite, per square inch. And more surface area to capture the cinnamon and sugar stuff you put on top. Either way, if you want to wrap the crescents up or you want to make them tarts, this is a quick and easy. You cannot go wrong with this dessert. Alright, so I've actually saved my favorite recipe for last. This is, it's cheese sauce. It's a recipe that my family has made every Christmas and every Thanksgiving forever. We only make it a couple times a year because it's really not the healthiest thing in the world, but man, is it good. So for the cheese sauce, you're going to start with, for a single batch, you're going to start with half a stick of butter, which I've already got in the pot here. You got a cup of milk, about 2 tablespoons of flour. You've got some 2 different bars of cheese. Now, I like to mix sharp cheddar and mild cheddar, just to keep the flavor a little interesting. And you're also going to need 16 ounces, a tub of sour cream. You're going to essentially start by making a roux with the butter, flour, milk. You're going to add the sour cream, the cheese, and the deliciousness will unfold from there. So let's get this one started. So this is one of those recipes that you have to be ready when you make it, because once you start, you can't stop stirring. You're going to constantly be stirring this. So make sure you've got time, you've got a good whisk, you've got someone with a good arm to sit out for you if you need to. Start by melting the butter. Now I'm using this thick, older pot here because this will retain the heat and it actually will help more evenly disperse the heat as it goes up. A lot of cheese sauces, especially if you start with a roux, have a tendency to break, and with the heat dispersed like this, it helps prevent that. Also, the constant stirring will help prevent that as well. With the butter nice melted, you're going to take and you're going to put your flour in, and you're going to start stirring. And from this point, the stirring does not stop. Essentially, you're looking to make the base for a roux. Now, you don't want to let this get too dark. You want to let this be a blonde base, essentially. Once the flour is integrated and you can see it just start to darken to that blonde color right there, you're going to pour in your milk. Now at this point, you're going to continuously stir until the milk starts to thicken. What you want to look for at this point is if the milk is thick enough to coat the back of a spoon if you dip it in there. And this absolutely is. So now we're going to get our sour cream in here. Just get the whole tub on in. And once it's in, you guessed it, stir. The sour cream actually does a couple of things once you put it in here. Aside from adding a whole lot more fats and a whole lot more dairy to it, it also cools down everything you've put in here so far, which gives you a chance to get everything integrated again before the heat starts to pile in. Once this whole thing is starting to warm back up, then it's finally time to add the cheese. I like to just add a small handful at a time and stir it in until that handful melts. Once that handful melts, go for a handful of the other cheese. And then you're going to repeat that process. Well, you're going to repeat that process until you feel like dying, but man, just before you do, that cheese sauce. Now, a couple of really important things to note about the cheese here is you always want to use the block cheese. When you might be tempted to use a shortcut and get the bag of already shredded cheese, and you don't want to do that. The reason is the shredded cheese is coated in a kind of cornstarch. It basically is there to prevent clumping, to prevent the cheese from becoming one solid mass once it's back in the bag after they shredded it. When you add that cornstarch to this mixture here, it causes it to break and separate, and then you get just essentially an oily, greasy mess. It's really not good. You want to stir constantly to prevent that breakage. Breakage is when the sauce that you've made starts to separate or crack, or it just doesn't look good. Sometimes some minor breakage can absolutely happen with this, and if it does, you just warm it back up, you stir it, and everything's good again. Another really good thing about this sauce in general is that it freezes and reheats incredibly well. So you can make a big batch of this and you can freeze it and you can have it for throughout the year if you need to. Now once everything is integrated into the sauce, you can turn this on down to low, you can cover it, and you can let it sit. This stuff will keep for the day. This stuff will keep for quite a while, actually. I genuinely don't know exactly how long because it's never lasted in our house. But we always have had a habit of whatever is not done in the meal, put some in the fridge for the next day for leftovers, and then freeze it. And there we go. Nice, thick, warm, gloopy cheese sauce. The first time I ever brought this cheese sauce to a meal outside my family, nobody knew what to do with it. And at first it can seem a little imposing because it's just a bunch of melted cheese. What we do with it is you just put it on everything. It just kind of heightens everything. This stuff is really good on turkey, potatoes, stuffing, any kind of protein, all the vegetables. If you've got broccoli or green beans, it really helps elevate those. And it actually mixes with the cranberry relish we made pretty well. So if you get a little bit together on your plate, it's always fine. I always like to test it once it's done. I've got this nice pretzel bun from the store, so let's see how our cheese sauce came out this year. Oh, look at that, nice and thick. Very hot. You can see the steam coming off of it. Oh, that's good. That is really good. And that is going to go well with whatever is going to be at dinner. So that's 3 recipes for you guys. You can take them, you can use them however you like to do. They're going to be written out at the bottom of this video. And honestly, it'll really help you show up at the holidays. So from me to you, happy eating, good times, and enjoy.